Assalamualaikum, Tan Chahau, IPD Lutunde, Manukam. Previously, we talked about the rising issue of climate change and its consequences. In today's broadcast, we are going to touch more on the first agenda of Sustainable Development Goals, which is no poverty. Generally, poverty means a state or condition in which a person or community lacks the financial resources and essentials for a minimum standard of living. This includes the inability to provide simple needs such as food, clean water, proper sanitization, and healthcare.
In an era of modernization, it is found that the rate of poverty in certain parties are increasing and sadly is becoming a never-ending issue. We have conducted a study to help justify our three hypotheses. Our first hypothesis is individuals in rural areas have lesser chances to boost their economic development. Secondly, public voices and human rights for certain people are not being considered in the country's development. The last one is, in certain underdeveloped countries, there lack enough job opportunities for people to fill it. To discuss more on our hypothesis, I will pass this to my colleague, Firdaus.
Approaching the year of 2030, determinants of poverty have become a major global issue that every country must cater to in their respective future developments. Based on the World Bank estimation, 100 million people nationwide are at risk of falling back into poverty, with most affected households concentrated in South Asia and SSA. Different articles have been collected to determine the challenges that the world faces in tackling the poverty issue. As in this paper, does geography have any impact on poverty rate? As far as poverty is concerned, we cannot ignore that the fact that geography plays a big role in the fate of livelihood in one's place. As for this impact, we statistically collected data showing percentage of 78% from our respondents say that no access to livelihood contribute to poverty issue. For example, the residents are not able to pursue their career in agriculture activities because of the lack of access to water resources in the rural area. The correlation between poverty rate and the altitude of the area can be clearly shown, as it's not convenient area, as the nature of rocky and mountain area restrain the residents from getting the access of supplies such as water resources. In addition, soil conditions and nature ecological are weak for rural areas, and the residents are having inadequate chances to proceed in agricultural production. Underdeveloped surrounding areas and poor geographical locations such as mountain area and rocky area certainly result in less investment and demand in those locations. To justify our next hypothesis, I'll pass this to my friend Najmi Fahmi.
Inequality in global economic growth restrain the minor poverty groups to escape from its issue that causes the children to suffer. In general, inequality is the case that people at the bottom groups have different income distribution compared to the relatively higher position community. On the other hand, exploitation and discrimination towards the minority groups such as pregnant women, disabled, and the poor put the worker in a situation that they can't even afford basic needs. Exploitation through job opportunities and low wages and prohibition of certain entitlements like work benefit lead the workers to poverty issue. These unethical activities may lead to the increase in the world poverty rate, which happens the most in Middle East countries. Capitalist theory can be used to describe how the rich exploits the poor people in terms of economic growth in industrial revolution. Situation of racial townships in South Africa can be seen even today, where during apartheid, black South African citizens were denied the chances to communicate with whites in social settings. The racism issue is still strong, which contribute to inequality and discrimination of employers toward the worker, especially in Zimbabwe states. The capitalists see the opportunity when the Africans provide cheap labor that was not properly rewarded with the wages as what they should earn. Rising inequality lead to greater poverty rate overall in several countries such as Albania and Bolivia, despite the poverty reduction impact of economic growth. To justify our last hypothesis, I will pass to my colleague Daniel Harris.
Lack of job opportunities is one of the challenges in eradicating poverty issues that's currently happening in numbers of countries. Household has less income profit to cover their expenditure when they lose their jobs and less wage of workers in industrial sectors. Since there's lack of job opportunities and most of them don't experience the equality in employment, many of them suffers from poverty where they don't have enough financial support in the family itself. However, we have to reflect the fact that young people and women have lack of education and skills required to meet the labour market demands, which results in high unemployment rates. As a result, they have been put into a lower grade sector which is suitable for their skills and low salary. However, workers who get minimum wages per month are not necessarily poor. Based on research, nearly 50% of low-paid workers come from relatively moderate families and less than 30% from the poor families. They still can survive without facing poverty issues, and this shows how important the employment opportunities play a crucial role in tackling the poverty issues. We have also conducted a few interviews to justify more on our hypothesis.
Today, we'll be interviewing one of our respondents in UTP. Hello, my name is Firdaus.
My name is Najee.
Okay, first question. Does geography have any impact on poverty rates?
I think yes, because some of the places, especially in Malaysia, they are like inside live at places that have almost no access to water. So, and some rural area, so the job opportunity is lower. So the poverty, geography will affect poverty.
Right. Move on to our next question. How does inequality restrain an individual from escaping poverty?
Inequalities will affect poverty from example as jobs. Some jobs requires like gender. They have specific gender or specific races. So the job opportunity for different people is different. So based on that, the inequality will affect poverty.
So there's a discrimination in the workplace.
Yes.
Alright. Our last question. What evidence show that job opportunities can have a positive impact on poverty?
Basically, if you have job opportunities, and depends on what job, and if that job has high salary, and it can support you depending on where you live, so I think you can escape poverty from job opportunities.
So that's all for our interview session today. Thank you, Najmi.
Okay.
Okay, this will be our second interview session with our international friends. Hi, my name is Firdaus.
Hello, I'm Deng.
Alright,
Yeah.
move on to our first question.
Okay.
Does geography have any impact on poverty rates?
Oh, definitely it has some impact on poverty rate, and this is quite evident actually when you go to the Sahara, let's say in Sudan and in Egypt, the people living in the Sahara don't have access to water, and they don't have like a fertile soil where they can grow, because most of the people there are just, they grow some crops. So because you're living in Sahara, you don't have a lot of water, and you don't have like rain, so many rains, and the soil is not actually fertile. It makes it very hard for you to live and to grow crops and get money. So the impact here, you can say, is negative. And some places, let's say along the River Nile in South Sudan, you have a lot of water, and actually the places in the river bank are so fertile soil. So if you're living there, you're living in heaven. You can get fish for free. You can get a very fertile soil for you to grow whatever crops you want. You will be self-sufficient if you live along the Nile. But meanwhile, when you live in places like Sahara or mountainous areas, if the government doesn't have any plan to alleviate you from poverty, it will be very difficult for you to live. So geography really have a very big impact on poverty.
So for our second question, how does inequality restrain an individual from escaping poverty?
Okay, inequality, the thing with inequality is this. If it usually divides people along some boundaries. The rich are in their own blocks and the poor are in their own blocks. It is difficult for you to escape from these. It sets some boundaries. Let's say today you're in Malaysia. In Malaysia, if you happen to be a poor guy from Johor Bahru, for example, whereby the poverty is quite rampant in Johor and people in KL have a very better life, because you live in Johor where there are less opportunities, it's very difficult for you from Johor to get outside of your poverty, you know, to become self-sufficient or to get rich. Meanwhile, for people living in KL, they have a lot of opportunities, whereby there are most of people living there like middle class and upper class kind of people. The opportunities are wider, and they have actually the understanding to get wealth better than people living in Kampong. Kampong people don't have access, they don't have knowledge, they don't have the resources. So if the division is along that urban areas and also rural areas, then it will make it very hard for people from rural areas to get outside of the compartment, the poverty compartment. Yeah. So the government need to make some policies to educate those people, give them some opportunities so that they can catch up with people who are in towns, who have more opportunities, and they are more aware than the people living in rural areas. Yeah.
So, move on to our last question. What evidence show that job opportunities can have a positive impact on poverty?
Okay, what evidence does show that? Okay, basically, someone is poor because he doesn't have, like, in each and every country they have this basic income whereby below it someone will be considered poor and above it someone will be considered like middle. So it relates to money. If you don't have this amount of money, then you're poor. So jobs usually offer you some income. Mainly, let's say if it's in town, if you get a job there, it gives you a certain kind of income. So you have a lot of job opportunities, mean a lot of people will get some income, and if they all get some income, that means they can afford their living, buy basic services, education, health, and so they will not be considered any more poor people. Yeah, so it's all about income. That's how people are divided actually into poor and rich. It's how much you get a month. If you have jobs, that's how much you get. Before you didn't have a job, and after you have a job, it's a very big gap, right? No matter how small it is. But then it depends on the quality of job, what kind of job it is. Yeah, it should be in a way that you have a certain minimum wage in the country that can offer each and everyone a very decent living standard. Yeah, that's what I think.
A very good answer from Mr. Dak. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank
see
you so much.
again.
All right, all the best, huh?
Yeah, sure.
All the best, guys. Thank you.
According to this project report, we are able to analyze the challenges in eradicating poverty that needs global attention. On the other hand, we also gain some information on cause and effect of poverty and solution how to reduce poverty rate through survey that has been conducted. Based on the results obtained, we finally able to point out a few challenges that make it so hard to eradicate poverty, such as geography, inequality, and job opportunities. The research is important to teach younger generations that there are people out there who need more support than we do. The Institute will also reap the benefits of the case study to bring the issue to a higher level after seeing how serious poverty in our country has become. It will allow them to discover critical areas that many scholars have not been able to explore in the educational process and directly provide new ways of dealing with poverty outcome. That's all for our today's broadcast. Thank you and have a good day.